are on It Takes a Village. I'm Jenny Schultz-Thomas, and today I am joined by a friend I'm so excited for you guys to meet. A lot of you already know, but this is Senior Rabbi Ben Sharff, who is at Temple Israel. Ben, you've been there for 2 years?
A little over 2 years.
Over 2 years.
I came July of 23.
Okay, July of 23. So we are here on the Tri-Faith Commons. I am here at Countryside. Ben is at Temple Israel, and then we have a colleague, Ibrahim Ashur, who is the imam at the mosque here at AMI. So it's been maybe 8 months since we have had 3 senior clergy on the Tri-Faith Commons, which is just an exciting thing, having a team of colleagues to work with. But as we talk about so often on this podcast, we have these lingering questions about, as people of faith, as leaders in the faith community, about belonging, about connection, and about creating meaningful ways for our members and those who are in our community to connect. And I feel like at this time, in this divisive world that we're in, this question couldn't be more imperative for us. You know, it takes a village, right? I think that's an opt-out sometimes for me. It takes a village. I can't do this on my own. But it truly takes a village. And I think we're fortunate here on the Commons to have this amazing village. But with it comes challenges. One of the things I was thinking about this morning, Ben, is food insecurity, right? Homelessness, the issues around just funding for programs like SNAP and those things. People are going to be facing the lack of, right, connection and community. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot is neighborliness. What does it look like to be a good neighbor? So what are you feeling at Temple, and what is your community thinking, or how is this hitting hard?
Well, I think there's also the additional layer to it, which is some of the most vulnerable people are also deeply fearful of even speaking up or speaking out or reaching out because they're afraid of what the repercussions of that might be, in addition to all of it.
Oh, right.
So
right.
that all adds to it. Where my mind is we're in a deeply troubling, deeply challenging time, both with what's going on in the larger world, what's going on in our country, and what is going on in our community. And to really be able to address it like everything else I've been thinking about on the Commons for the past 2+ years is we are still struggling to know each other.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to ask for help if you don't even know who to ask, how to ask, or if the ask would even be welcome.
Right. Like back to your point around the fear on top of fear.
Yep.
Right. So if there's an instability of just, do we know each other? Do we trust each other? That's basic, right? The hierarchy of needs. Am I known? Am I safe? Am I loved? And so to not know for sure, because there's ambiguity around loss and grief and disconnection because of, right, even moving to the Commons and then COVID and so many layer upon layer. Yep. And then, of course, the othering that we're doing of, just about anyone who's not a Caucasian, higher economic status individual in this country, right? So there's a lot facing our community. I think one of the things that I struggle with just as a faith leader is the helplessness sometimes of, what does it mean for us leading congregations and supporting our community when a lot of the traditional things that we would do, right, connecting people to these resources are going away.
Yeah.
It's, what does it even mean to hear these numbers around, $60 million loss in food distribution to our own city, and making up that kind of a gap? What does that even look like? So it feels a little bit helpless. I know that we're not, right? We have each other. We need to get to know each other, and we need to make sure, I think, people feel like there's an accessibility to either shared community, right? First, you're not alone in this. And after shared community, there's a safety to ask a question like, how I'm struggling. Is there a way that you can help?
And yes, and the other issue that I keep thinking about a lot is we're inundated by crises.
Yes.
So it's not like, okay, we know food insecurity is one crisis, but it's one of a myriad of them. And you become so overwhelmed, you don't even know what to tackle, where to put your time, where to put your energy, because it seems like if you just start going in one particular direction, you're going to get derailed by something else.
Yes.
So that adds an additional layer to it. And I think there's also a larger communal and societal expectation that certain people, certain communities, certain groups are so blessed that they can just take it on, or, and this is something that I'm really struggling with, sort of the notion of intersectionality. The idea is, if you're not with me on all things, then you can't be with me on this particular issue, which
Yes.
means then you are negating or ignoring or displacing our seat at the table, which is a particular issue that the Jewish community is struggling with, because we have a tradition of really being involved in a lot of the social justice world, but a lot of our partners recently have sort of drawn lines in the sand, saying you can't be with us on this because of what's going on in the larger geopolitical world.
Mm.
And then it also, and it's very curious, because then we'll hear, where are you? Why aren't you standing with us? And it's like, well, you told us we can't.
Wow.
So it's we're responding to crises all the time, and we have this additional pressure and this additional layer to all of it, which at times I think is just exhausting and overwhelming. And it makes a lot of people just want to throw their hands up and go, well, there's nothing, I can't do it right. There's nothing I can do. It's too much. Therefore, I'm just going to disengage, stick my head in the sand, and hide.
Yeah. You just said what I hear from so many of our justice advocates, those on the front lines, those who have always been fighting on the side of the oppressed, right? But I think one of the key things that kind of always happens around so much what we're talking about, trauma, and using that word, there's a lot of baggage around that word, right? But real true trauma, where the hierarchy of needs is threatened, you're not safe, you don't know where your food is coming from, all of those things, and people are facing that more so right now than in my lived history, not in the history of civilization or our country or any of those things, but in our lived history, right? So trauma fatigue, compassion fatigue, justice fatigue, people are used to at least being able to collectively use power and action to embody and affect change. And we are still able to do that as people, right, gathered. But because of the fractured, right, nature of relationships and the myopic view of so many groups and so many individuals, like when chaos and division and hate and violence are thrust upon, right, a whole community, most of the time people kind of put their head in the sand and just, you need to retreat to protect self or protect group, right? And in a group who's been marginalized and oppressed, like the Jewish community in our country forever, I mean, number one, even showing up at the table is already a form of resistance. You have to put yourself out there and show up at the table and say, we're walking with you. And it's always going to be compromising safety, right? So I think that's the hard thing, knowing that there's not much we can do even as neighbors to protect one another, right? Especially in a time where people putting their head in the sand means that I'm not looking at you. I'm not welcoming you, not on the fight, but I'm not welcoming you as a neighbor to walk alongside me in sort of like what William Barber calls the fusion movement, right? So if I'm not with you on everything, right, then you're really not with me, right? And I think that's the thing that people are saying is like, you can't, if you're not with me on everything, you're not with me. But the fact that the administration that we're facing right now is intentionally divisive around issues, there isn't this coalescing around, well, what does it mean to have an intersectionality and then also a fusion movement that allows for everyone who are oppressed and marginalized to walk the same journey?
Yeah, and it's a big problem when you're dealing with ideological purity and moral certainty. And this is the point where I'm sort of gotten to, is I really want to be able to start to refocus on where there is commonality, rather than say, we're not going to solve all the problems in the world. We're not going to agree on everything, nor should we be holding people accountable or communities accountable on those points of disagreement.
Right.
Because then nothing is going to get
Nothing's going to
accomplished.
happen.
That's the real struggle where we're at right now. And so if we can find those points of commonality and not bring everything else to the table, then I think we can tackle some of these larger issues.
Yes. Oh.
But to ask someone to, well, you have to reject that part of your identity or leave it at the door and not be your true authentic self, People are not interested in that at this moment. They want to be seen as their full authentic selves in order to be partners in doing sacred work.
Yes. And I think that's really important that for our listeners, for our own communities to hear and understand is, first of all, I can only speak for ourselves, but on the Tri-Faith campus, right? We have moved to this location, right? We have this question, does co-location foster community? And I personally would say on the commons, of course, yes. But I would also say that community takes work, no matter if it's your neighbor who lives 10 feet from your house. I mean, I live in Dundee and we have teeny yards, and it's like 10 feet away is a whole family who in 5 seconds are in your lawn, right? And I love it. It's amazing, but it doesn't mean that it's community just because they're next door.
Yeah.
So community takes effort, it takes work. And we've seen that, and it's been amazing. There are so many great relationships on this commons, but community also happens when vulnerability is invited, right? And so bringing your full self is challenging, especially in the world where that full self is rejected by a lot of someone's out there, right? So when you show up as your full self, whether it's your faith identity, I'm a queer, minister, you show up and there's always going to be someone who's rejecting you. But that's not really the point. The point is, like you're saying, the commonality is the fear-based, oh, I might be rejected. We have to work to get past that. And that, I think that's what our deep faith and the commitment to loving one another allows for, right? The deep kind of connection to community. So these are the things I fear, but this is worth it even more to me.
And I think we need to switch the narrative from accountability to cooperation. So I think a lot of what I've witnessed over the past years, because I'll be honest, the war has pretty much defined the entirety of my time with Temple Israel and here on the Commons, is there's a lot of expectation of accountability. And
say more about that.
Well, there's this idea that if you don't say the right thing or speak out in the right way or articulate a message or take a stance that is exactly where I am at.
Then the I meaning
all
the eyes out there.
All the eyes out there, then we cannot be in relationship or partnership because you are not saying, doing, speaking exactly what I expect.
Yes.
And that's sort of the notion of accountability versus partnership. Partnership. And the idea, and I think of the co-location is I would play a little bit. I'd say co-location does not mean, as you were saying, does not necessarily mean community. It just means we're neighbors. But to be neighbors means to actually do things together and to be in relationship and partnership, which means opportunity for collaboration and cooperation, but not the expectation of accountability. And look, like you mentioned, I've got neighbors too, and we don't. There are a lot of things we disagree with politically.
Oh, right.
But when a storm blew through, I want to say a year and a half ago, it knocked down trees in our yard, knocked down trees in their yard. They had a chainsaw. We did not. We all worked together to help clear the trees so that way they could be picked up.
Yeah.
That was a moment of opportunity and partnership. It wasn't about politics, wasn't about the greater world, was we have this immediate need. We're going to do this together.
Yeah.
And we did it together. And when they got stuck in the snow, I was out there trying to help them get out of the snow. It was about recognizing that immediate need. That way we could be neighbors and we still have certainly space to disagree, which is a part of the profound nature of the human experience. But it wasn't about, well, I'm only going to help you get out of the snow if you change your political perspective.
Right.
Who does that?
Who does that? Well, it's a great question because I think we have exploited, right, the vulnerability of the human condition in ways that are very much to the chagrin of our ancestors, maybe, right? Is that we do that all the time in these microaggressive ways. I think what's really beautiful about what you're saying, and I think I want to make the point earlier when you're talking about, if you don't say this, that makes me feel exactly how I need to, whatever. As faith leaders, as proclaimers of the word, of the book, we have a high task. And that is, number one, when you're called, right? A rabbi, a congregation calls you, they call you, right? There's only one of you. There's only one of me. And we go through a pretty rigorous process. And we say, this is who I am, and we have this discerning evolution of this year-long journey, sometimes months-long journey. And we say yes to those calls. And then we also live into the vulnerability of our own fallibility and our own humanness. And I think congregations sometimes, it's like the kindergarten class when the substitute comes and the kindergarten teacher, everything is so wonderful. And then here comes the sub, and then all the kindergartners are like, "Wah!" Right? And it can be sometimes the anxiety of the world and the chaos of the world throws all of us into this unraveling place and the instability. And then we look to leaders and faith leaders, right, to fix everything. But the thing is, we are also one of you. We are fallible, we are human, we are vulnerable, but we are who we are. And so the challenge is really, I would put back to all of our communities, talking about accountability and cooperation. The real challenge is that we each understand that we belong to each other. Temple Israel belongs to you, and you belong to them. You are one faith leader. I am one faith leader. The beauty of the relationships, and I would say experiment and beyond experiment that we are in, is that the grand experiment of humankind, right, of us being alive on this planet, is that we can always point to beauty and reconciliation and a God who holds us through it all. But we're not puppets on a string. Right? We are always acting out this beautiful human story, and we're getting it wrong all the time. But we can shovel snow with a neighbor who we disagree with politically. That is getting it right in a way that we need to lean more deeply into, because that is the evolution of really what the administration, who, I think is perpetuating political violence in so many ways and trying to, right, embody something that challenges us. And this is my own view. I think when we decide that we are rehumanizing the experience and rehumanizing one another, that is where deep love, right, can connect us in a way that we see beyond the things that are different about us, and that we see, wow, I would love to shovel snow with you. I would love to help you. And that is an innate kind of response when we feed it, right? So it's challenging to be a faith leader. And we have congregation members who want us to say certain things or be certain things, especially you, I would think, in this particular 2-year period of the war, having something define an entire congregation, or even on the comments, we've had so many challenges around this. We have to get beyond deciding that if you only said this, everything would be fine. If our rabbi only, was saying these things, or if Pastor Jenny would just stop talking about this, stop naming that, everything would be better. Yeah. It's just not, it's never been that, and it never will be. We have to start seeing that our vulnerabilities are what create community and deep abiding belonging. And that is what makes us stronger together and better neighbors.
And in addition to that, these internal community crises are making it hard to do the sacred work of the partnership. So I was thinking about it this is a story that's often told and repeated, especially in social justice worlds, which is the idea that there's a community by a river, and they notice someone floating down the river who's drowning. And so they immediately race in, grab the person, and pull them out. Thereby, they've done an act, they've saved someone. Next day, there are 2 people in the river. So they race in and grab the 2 and pull them out. And they're noticing this day after day after day. And so they set up some guardrails to help save the people. And finally, it's a child who says, maybe we need to go upriver and figure out why people are falling in the first place. And so I've been reflecting on that a lot, because for us and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but on the superficial level, to work to say, collect food, collect funds to help with things like food insecurity is really important.
Right.
Absolutely. And the beauty of it is when you're successful at it, makes people feel good.
Yeah.
I have done something, I've rescued someone from the river.
Mm-hmm.
But the true partnership is where we can find the lines of intersection, where we can say, these are values we all share, and we need to work to address the larger issues causing food insecurity. Mm-hmm. And that is the hard work. The easy work is to gather the food. The hard work is to work to solve these larger communal issues. But that only comes from being in relationship. And again, it's about partnership, and not saying, well, you are accountable for all these things, therefore I can't be in relationship with you because I'm upset, I'm offended, I'm hurt by all these other things not related to where we should be working together. And so I think about that a lot in terms of what it means to be in community and partnership here on the campus, because what are those moments? What are those shared values that we can work together to really address that would, 1, elevate our communities, and 2, elevate the hearts of our members to feel like we're doing important work and having an impact?
Yeah, I think that's right. I will one of the groups who meets here on the Commons, AIFS, was just interviewed on KETV about the SNAP, the loss of SNAP in this community in general. And I was thinking all day yesterday, I had this run in with OPPD, and it was not fun. And I'm not going to talk about it again because I was not happy about it. But all day long, I was thinking about this level of needs, right? The level of needs. I had a really difficult situation, but I have everything I needed. Right? I have my power. I have everything. It was one of those experiences that reminds you of privilege and belonging, and then voice. Like, who has a voice? I had a voice. I was able to call and make a complaint and have action taken. And I kept thinking about most people don't have that kind of voice, and replaying that interview, which is really about immigrant communities, refugee communities coming, asylum seekers coming, and not having the resources that our community sort of has promised, right, and has allocated that they would have resources, which is food. And so, because they meet on the Tri-Faith Commons, I thought, you know what, this is a great. We were just talking with together yesterday. It's a great opportunity for us who are on this Commons, where a community, an African-based community, right, of asylum seekers and refugees, are naming that this is a direct hit to their families, and they will not literally have food on the table in a few weeks. This is one of those tangible things about people, drowning in the river, right? It is also one of those things where it's kind of in phases and steps of trust, institutionally and relationally, where you can sometimes say, well, here's an immediate need. We all want to respond to immediate needs, right? Especially food and children who are suffering in our own community. That can sometimes be the first step to then going to the next, because legislative action, a power-based community to come together to make change, those things usually take time to build.
Yeah.
And that is exactly, I think, what we should be doing on the Commons, and we have experience doing. But having something like this in our backyard, knowing that we have resources and congregants who would definitely be so supportive of these kinds of initiatives, then I think as faith leaders, when our communities start to respond and come together, we can gently take the next step to say, well, what else might we do? How might we join our voices together and raise and elevate this issue and present this in a way that maybe legislatively or politically, because that's the only way, right, these kind of allocations can come back, we might take those steps together. And I think it doesn't always have to be around a particular issue, but if we take those relational steps to come together through service and love and compassion, it builds the trust in ways the deprivation of those relationships, what we have been through in the last couple of years, are renewed, because we know that we're called here to love one another, to serve one another. And then it rebuilds this hope that we have in our own tri-faith community.
And to add another layer to it. So I remember hearing a story about Parshat Yitro, which is the story of the receiving of the Ten Commandments in the book of Exodus, where Jethro, Yitro, the beginning of it comes to Moses. And Moses is, I envision, sitting under a tree adjudicating for all the Israelites. Everybody's coming to him with their big concerns, their mild concerns, their insignificant concerns. And he's basically ruling because he's the only guy who can help them adjudicate all of this. And his father-in-law comes to him and says two very curious things. First, he says, Moses, you can't do this alone. You need to establish a system of judges to really help you navigate all this. That way, they're only coming to you with the really big unsolvable things that you can talk with God about. But the second piece is by you doing this alone, you're actually harming the community. And so as a faith leaders, the reason why I was told this story was it's not our job to raise up the people. It's our job in part to raise up more Moseses, to find more people really willing to step up and then help take the next steps. Because one of the challenges we have as clergy is the metaphor I like to use, I'm a little bit like a ping pong ball. I'm just bouncing from thing to thing to thing to thing. And so I'm never able to give anything as much as attention as it deserves, or even my own people as much as attention as they deserve or as they would like. And that is very valid. And so to tackle a lot of these issues, we need partners in our community who not only are willing to step up and sort of take the lead on it and the ownership of it, but also then have the relationships within the larger tri-faith community to be able to partner together. And so I'm thinking if we can find something that really appeals to a core group of people that they can really run with. We can lift it up, we can elevate it, we can draw attention to it. But if they can really tackle it, that is where we're going to see even more enduring and lasting success.
I couldn't agree more. And we have the Tri-Faith Garden just as a great example of that.
Yep.
Right? It's, Bonnie, it's Marsha Bloom, it's members from the Tri-Faith Commons who are continually, right, doing sacred work there. I know I have lifted it up and supported it. I am not an amazing gardener, a green thumb. It's an amazing example of what it means to come together, right, out of our shared community beliefs of loving one another, benevolence, climate care of the earth. And they are doing amazing work feeding people, right, the soul and their bodies. So that's a great example of how we can shepherd projects that our communities long for or they have ideas around. I think that's, I'm excited about the next phase of our life together here on the Tri-Faith Commons. We'll have a new leader who's just been announced, Renee Franklin. That's exciting. Mm-hmm. Partnering with AMI around different children's ministries. Have you ever driven by AMI and see about 50, children running around playing soccer in the back? I mean, there's so many different opportunities for us to come together around things, again, our commonalities, right? In ways that not only help support us on the commons, but really support accessibility in Omaha, right? We have safe communities. We have, with the House of Baugh, feeding people. There are a lot of opportunities for us to sort of say, we're raising the portfolio on the commons so that people in Omaha know that we are here and as partners, ready to partner with other organizations who are also doing good things and neighborly commitments. It's exciting.
It is. And it is a core opportunity. Absolutely. And it just gets back to what we've been talking about, which is to lower the barriers, to lower the temperature, and to say, okay, we may not agree on this one thing or these things, but on this we can agree and work together. And I think one of the myths of tri-faith that I've sort of heard expressed both within the Omaha community, but also in the larger community, is that we're sort of in sync with each other, that by building this commons and by being neighbors, there is the sacred agreements that really sort of bind us together. And the argument I've been making for quite a while now is, one, we need to acknowledge our sacred disagreements, and that's okay. And that, two, partnership and relationship is not defined merely by where we agree, but also by where we disagree, and that's okay. But even through those disagreements, there's a lot of sacred work we can do together.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm glad you're reminding us of that, the sacred disagreements, actually naming and finding peace and solid sacred ground. And those disagreements allows for all of the opportunities for new agreements to come out, right? For new shepherding the garden. I mean, disagreement is part of the human story. It's part of our human condition. I always tell my children, I have two, right? A son and a daughter, and they're 2.5 years apart. They're going to fight a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, this is your sibling. This is the only sibling you're going to have. I hear my dad saying this in my ear, but if you can't understand how to have disagreements and then come together, talk it out, you still love each other, you're going to have to work this out. You will not have this sibling if you continue to fight and never negotiate. I think that's the same thing when you have sacred disagreement. You're saying, I recognize the sacred, beautiful, divine love of God in you, right? I see that. We both hold that. If I can't see that we have more in common as human beings than what these disagreements are doing to us, and if I don't allow you, right, to speak your own truth and see that, oh, we disagree there, let's say that and move to something else, like, we won't have a relationship.
Yep.
It'll be a superficial lack of understanding of what it means to be human.
Yep.
So I think we have a challenge on our hands as humans. I think it's the gift of the world, right, that we get to serve in this way, and that we are always ever becoming who God would seek us to be. But we are beloved, and we are wonderful, and you are wonderful. Rabbi Sharff, it's been so great to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being with us. And I'm so excited to have continue our own relationship, building friendship and neighborliness on the commons.
Sounds good.
Until next time, friends, we will see you back here next week.